everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our Beef Brunch news update on Monday, July 20th. My name is Ashley Edwards, and with me today are Jason Holmes and Lee Falk. Our counterpart, Vince Desatel, could not join us today. If you've missed any of our previous updates, we are making these bi-weekly reports being released every other Monday at 10:30 a.m. We also do our best to make sure that we include any links we mention in the description below the video. I'll start us off with a little short weather update. It looks like it's been fairly consistent across the state in terms of temperatures. We've had highs in the mid to upper 90s with kind of what I've been saying is a pretty ridiculous heat index. It feels pretty warm out there, and seeing lows in the mid to upper 70s at night. When I was looking earlier at our agroclimatic, I can never say that properly, system that we have for the LSU Ag Center, what they do is they have reports for different research stations across the state. And really, in terms of rainfall, all we saw was there was a couple inches of rain around our Hammond station in the last couple of days. And then it looked like our Iberia research station may have had a little bit over an inch within the last week or so. Lee, do you mind adding to the weather in North Louisiana and then going ahead and talking a little bit about hay production and storage for us?
Thank you, Ashley. Good to be with everyone today. As Ashley said, we've seen some rainfall across the northern part of the state this week. We've seen quite a bit in some areas, and the pastures and hay fields have really responded. Seen a tremendous amount of growth in forages out there, and there's been a lot of hay being baled, of course, due to that, with a brief dry period that we've seen over the last few days. And that leads into the next topic that we want to mention. We've gotten several calls from producers wanting to question about what moisture level is sufficient to bale hay, and when we're talking about dry hay. And so on that, we recommend around 15% or below on the moisture level. There are moisture meters out there. There's quite a few different kinds out there that are accurate to one degree or another. And of course, the microwave method, which I think we talked about in one of our previous updates, is the surefire way. And we've got more information on that if you have any questions. But more disturbing, we've been hearing some reports from producers, one hay barn catching on fire, and several questions about temperatures on hay when you're storing hay in a barn. And that can be a very dangerous situation. It's kind of accentuated also by the fact that this rainfall has made some of this grass lush. A lot of these guys are battling crabgrass, which is notoriously hard to cure, and even some Bermuda grasses that's pretty lush and a lot of new growth recently fertilized. So and producers may be pushing the window as far as getting it baled at the right moisture level. So just wanted to make mention, it's kind of an old topic as far as monitoring temperatures of hay, but it is something that you need to keep in mind. I recommend folks get a good thermometer. You can buy a good thermometer that would be sufficient to probe into hay, fairly cheap, and you want to check that hay at several different times. And the University of Georgia has a very good article and a good chart that'll kind of tell you what's going on. I'm not going to get into a lot of the science on what's causing that hay to go through the heat or sweat, but we know it does it, especially at those higher moisture levels. And so it's ordinary to see hay baled coming in at that 100, 110 range, all the way up to 120. We're starting to get in a little bit of trouble whenever you start probing hay in the barn and you're starting to see temperatures above that 120 range. And then you're for sure in danger if you go out there and you check the temperature on some hay in the barn and you're in that 150, 160 range. Any higher than that, the fire could break out at any time. So if you do put up some hay and it's questionable, you might want to let it sit outside the barn for just a little while, try to let it go through that first heat or sweat. And as I said, invest in a thermometer, some way, some method to check the temperature of that hay when you do put it in. If you do see those high temperatures, if you do see 140, 150 or above, you definitely need to have a plan in place, whether it be trying to get that hay out or if it's a higher temperature and you see some smoldering, you definitely need to call the fire department and make them aware. Barns are too expensive these days to lose them to a hay fire. So Ashley, just kind of a reminder for everybody.
All right, thank you, sir. To add to that a little bit, last week we had Dr. Ed Twidwell as the speaker for our Beef Brunch monthly webinar, and he was speaking on ryegrass and other winter forage options for cattle producers. While he was doing that, he did go ahead and say that now is the time to be collecting soil samples in any of the fields that you're going to, or pastures that you're going to want to start planting your winter forages on. So we have that recording available for his webinar. It's on our YouTube channel as well as our Beef Brunch website. If you have any questions on soil sampling, winter grazing options, hay or forage samplings, you can reach out to your local extension agent or to one of us. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see all of our contact information here. Again, so just reminder, think of everything that Lee just said, and it's hot outside, but it is time to go ahead and start planning for the winter forage and nutrition needs for your cattle. Jason, it looks like our markets might be having a little bit of optimism coming into them. Do you mind talking a little bit about that? And then you can also, if you don't mind, go in and talk a little bit about working with calves. I know you and I mentioned earlier that we've been seeing some people start to ship out calves, so it looks like weaning is already starting, especially here for some of our producers in North Louisiana.
All right, yes, ma'am. I appreciate you. I hope everybody's had a good week, and looking forward to the towards the end of July. It'll be August before we know it, and like Ashley was saying, the weather certainly feels like that. It's been pretty oppressive for the last several days. Looking at the markets for the weekend in July the 17th. Negotiated cash trading was kind of light. If you look in the Southern Plains, which would be the feeding area closest to us, they were pretty much steady at $95 100 weight, which would be about $1 higher than the previous week. I think if you read most of what the chatter has been, and we'll look at some of the calf weights in just a minute, some of those stockers and feeder prices in just a minute. And I think a lot of that has to do with some of our futures markets have got a little bit of optimism in them. There's kind of some questions out there why it's got so much optimism in it, but it apparently does. So October futures are currently trading steady at 106, and December is at 109. And if you get out even further than that, those prices are still climbing. Of course, as you get further out into some of those other months, the trade volume gets a little bit lighter, so it's kind of hard to say that's a tested price. But October and December's got some pretty good trade volume at that 106 and 109. 500 to 600 pound steers sold 139 to 150. So based on the previous week, that's $2 to $10 higher on that weight and class of cattle. 7 to 8 weights sold $1.25 to $1.36, and that was $6 to $14 higher than the previous week. So that's good news for our folks that have got cattle going to the markets right now. Those feeder steers, those futures on those feeder steers, currently trading at 142, and in September and October are about $1 higher than that 142. Weekday fed cattle slaughter remains on pace, so we're consistently averaging just short of 94,000 head per day over the last few weeks. Saturday slaughter is averaging about 50,000 head during the last 4 weeks. So Cattle Facts considers, some of their reporting considers that meeting or exceeding a pace of 94,000 head on the weekdays and 55,000 head on the weekends or Saturday is adequate to allow the front end supply to be fully utilized by year end 2020. So that's been a lot of the concern is how long it's going to take us to get out of that backlog of cattle. So they're speculating that if we can't keep on pace with that, then hopefully they'll work through that backlog by the end of the year. Let's all hope and pray that we can keep COVID out of those slaughter facilities where they can keep this pace up. Carcass weights remain elevated, but that trend is kind of sideways or lower since it reached its high back in May. Based on the latest 2 weeks estimates, expectations are for weights to be between 25 and 30 pounds higher than last year, where just a few weeks ago those weights got up as much as 52 pounds higher than year ago weights. So that kind of wraps up our markets, and I'll move right into, we've been talking a little bit about weaning and preconditioning. Visited with Lee on the phone a little bit earlier today, just talking about some of these things, and just trying to help trigger some thought for you, get some thought processes going in terms of, for those of you that are getting ready to do some weaning, do some shipping of cattle, maybe even doing some preconditioning. So the first thing is, and I hope that you can tell, I've got that bolded there on that slide, is to plan early, especially if you're bringing in additional help to the farm to get that cattle working, that weaning process done, additional cowboys, working with your veterinarian to pick dates. If you do plan to conduct pregnancy determination, that's an excellent time to do that whenever you're weaning those off. Also an excellent time to conduct those body condition scores. You can tap into your veterinarian to help you do that. If you've got a veterinarian there that's doing those pregnancy determinations, whether that's rectal palpation or drawing blood, however you may be doing that, that's a good opportunity to conduct those practices. And then check your supplies, the vaccines. Check your vaccine cooler. Make sure you can locate your vaccine cooler. If you need to wash it out, if it's been sitting under the barn, wash it out good, get ready to go. Check your supplies of dewormer needles, transfer needles, disposable syringes, basically anything that will prevent you to having to make another trip to town. That's what all of this is about. For whenever you get out there, you get at the barn, you're not having to make any unexpected trips back into town to pick up supplies. If you're using those multi-dose syringes, get them out, check them, clean them up, make sure they're functioning properly. Check your ear tag supply, make sure you can locate your tagging pliers. Depending on what type of tag you're using, you might also want to make sure that you've got extra backs for some of those tags. Check the squeeze chute. If you're operating with a hydraulic squeeze chute, make sure you don't have any hydraulic leaks. Turn the pump on. Operate everything. Make sure you don't have any leaking fittings or leaking hydraulic hoses. If you're operating with a manual chute, again, work it. Lubricate all the moving parts. Make sure it's working right. And then the facilities, check your gates, your fences. Make sure you got water there at the facility. If you need electricity out of the barn, make sure that that's working before you actually get to that day that you'll be getting cows up and weaning. If you're going to be weaning on farm, maybe preconditioning for a certain number of days, check your perimeter fences, check your cross fences, and also check those watering tanks. If you're using watering tanks, if you're using stock ponds, just check those, make sure that you've got plenty of water for those calves whenever you do wean them. Start moving the herd closer to the working facilities. Some people with smaller herds, they might actually start feeding in those working facilities, get those cattle used to coming up. Start early in the morning whenever you do, that way those cattle want to come up. The later you work, wait until the day in this kind of heat, those cattle really not going to want to move out of the shade. So start early, get those cattle used to coming up to those facilities. If you've got to move them across several different pastures to get to there, start doing that now and just start easing them towards that direction. And then also planning and scheduling transportation to the market. If you have to depend on other folks with goosenecks to move them to market, or if you've got to, if you're moving truckloads of cattle, go ahead and start planning and scheduling that transportation as needed. So weaning and preconditioning on farm, I would refer you back to one of our beef brunch webinars. It was one of the early ones we did, where we talked a good bit about preconditioning and some of those options that are out there. I would refer you back to that. You can go to lsuagcenter.com/beef brunch and you can locate that webinar. So some of the things that you got to plan for, and we'll wrap up with this, Ashley, is what will be your weaning methods. So you going to you're going to fence line wean. There's several different options there for you for weaning methods. What will be your preconditioning program and what will consist of? So nutrition. Are you going to use stockpile forages in those pens where you're weaning it? Are you going to feed them? So if you're going to feed them, you might also want to think about going ahead and getting those commodities, or working with your feed supplier and making sure that those are going to be economical for you. Are you going to castrate and dehorn at that time? And also your health program. So a lot of times that health program is going to be driven by the market that you're going to be going into those calves with. A lot of times you may have to work with your veterinarian to make sure that you're meeting the needs of that, or meeting the demands and requirements of those different markets. So as you can see, it just takes a good bit of planning. Start now, start early, and hopefully whenever you do get to that point that the cows are up and you're weaning those calves and you're weaning or preconditioning, hopefully it'll be a less painless or less painful situation. With that, Ashley, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. A few more things to mention before we wrap up. A few weeks ago, Lee, Jason, and I filmed 4 different videos on selection of commercial replacement heifers. Those are located on the Livestock YouTube channel, and you can also find them on the Ag Center website if you look under beef cattle and then search under production and management. I will provide that link in the video description below as well. This coming week, we're looking forward to working with Dr. Christine Navarre to film some cattle handling videos. Those will be available within the next few weeks after we get them edited and put up on both the website and the YouTube channel. We are also excited to say that the Beef Brunch educational series is going to be released in podcast format. So the series can be found already on Spotify, Overcast, and Pocket Casts if you use any of those. We are waiting for approval to be both on Google and Apple Podcasts as well. My understanding is that might take another week or so before the Beef Brunch series is released on both Apple and Google. We will keep you posted on all of that. The last note that we have to mention is our next monthly webinar. We're going to have Dr. Guillermo Scaglia discussing grazing nutrition. That will be held on August 11th at 10:30 a.m. We will have more information, of course, or we do already have more information on our Beef Brunch webpage. Jason mentioned that earlier, but it's lsuagcenter.com/beefbrunch. Any information that you have on any of the topics that we cover here, again, these as news updates are really to serve as reminders and to kind of get you thinking about different things to be planning in your management strategies, as well as any news as it comes up. So we don't get to go into a whole lot of detail. So if you have questions, reach out to your local extension agent, reach out to one of us, and we will be more than happy to help you with that. Thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions specific to the Beef Brunch series, you can reach out to me. My contact information is here and will be in the description below. We will see you again in a couple of weeks.